Our next speaker is visiting from Peru, Maria Caballero Espejo, and welcome.
Oh, it's already on.
Let's see, here we go. Uh-oh. There we go, okay, thank you. Okay, Maria, you want to use this?
I think it works.
Oh, okay, great, yeah, go ahead. Okay, thanks, go ahead.
Okay, so a warm hello to all of you. My name is Maria Caballero, and I'm really glad and thankful for being here to be able to share the work I did in terms of climate adaptation to one of the most significant impacts of the coastal El Niño events. So before to guide you to the details of this presentation, I want to take you to my country. I want to take you to Peru by showing you this image that might be familiar for some of you or probably most of you. This is the Pacific Basin, and here we have depicted these boxes that are El Niño regions. So normally when we study El Niño, we tend to look for the places in the Pacific Basin that show warm waters in general. But in general terms, when we have to analyze or monitor El Niño, we will take a look at the El Niño 3.4 here in the Central Pacific. However, if we want to take a look at the impacts of this event in Peru, we have to go a bit to the east, so to this region, El Niño 1+2. Why? Because when we have a warming of the ocean in this region, we have significant changes in temperature and precipitation that are causing basically extreme rainfall events in the otherwise arid coastal area of the country. And due to the presence of this Andes Cordillera over here, we are also going to experience other events such as flooding and mass movements that normally cause a lot of problems or implications in the socioeconomic systems. But this is not just a conceptual model. El Niño is not new for Peruvians. We have experienced these events from many, many years in the past, centuries actually. And if we just go back to the recorded period, we can take a look at the strong El Niño events. Let's go to the 1992-1993 El Niño. This event showed the dramatic changes in the socioeconomic systems. And then, again, almost 20 years after, we had the El Niño of 1997-1998. Again, we can see similar disruptions in the socioeconomic systems. And once more, almost 20 years after, we have El Niño of 2016 and 17. I have to say that this is the coastal El Niño of 2016 and 17 because the rest of the Pacific was neutral or cold. So we have all of these changes or implications in the socioeconomic systems, and that means that we are not doing great or we are not doing even good in our prevention systems. We are repeating the same things again and again and again. And that's probably because we are just reacting to the events, or probably because we are using past events to understand the future or the next El Niño event. But we have to take into account that not all the Niños are the same. And you can see that in these pictures that show the warming in the Pacific. This picture shows different warming, and that's also reflected on the different precipitation impacts. And here you can see that the precipitation or the increases of precipitations are mainly located in the north coast of the country. Here you can see again in the north coast, but also affecting the central coast of the country and some part of the south. And in the last El Niño event, you can see that all the west slope of the Andes Cordillera was mainly affected by these increases in precipitation. So, given that we have this climatic change and we have the warming of the ocean, we can expect the future to be probably different or probably similar to these events. So that's why I decided to kind of make a proof of concept of how can we build an adaptation strategy to El Niño. To do so, the first thing is to understand what the future might look like in terms of how El Niño will evolve in the future. And for that, we are going to do a climate analysis. But with the climate analysis, it's not enough. We need to use this information into decision-making processes. And for that, we need to do what's known as the danger assessment, because we need to know where are the places that are more likely to be affected by this event. In the end, we are going to use this information to build a suitable adaptation option for the country. And we are going to do this by creating an adaptation design. So let's go for the first one. I did the climate analysis using a global model, the MPI Air System model, and I took a look at 50 years in the past and 50 years in the future. For the future, I used the RCP 4.5. And what I did is basically to identify the coastal El Nino events using the coastal El Nino index for the past and for the future. Whenever I identify a strong El Nino event, then I calculate the variation of precipitation during these events. And finally, I got this kind of maps. Here we can see the climatology, precipitations. This is the entire rainy season. Here we can see the past strong El Nino events, and here we can see the future strong El Nino events. As you can see here, again, this picture shows the increase of precipitation along the north coast of the country, and that's the thing that we already saw. But what about the future? We can see that, again, we have an increase of precipitation in the north coast, but we are also seeing that not just the north coast is affected, but also some parts of the central and southern coast of the country here. In the end, we can use these maps in order to create a provincial level map of variation of precipitation during strong coastal El Nino events. And we have something like this. But as I said before, this is not enough. We need to use this information. And for that, we do a danger assessment by, first of all, calculating the danger intensity, which is a function of the susceptibility factor and the rain factor, which is, in this case, the trigger factor. So we use basically this equation, which is the susceptibility to mass movement equation, that it's a function of the vegetation cover, the sloping conditions, the geomorphology, the hydrogeology, and so on. And with that, we create this kind of map at the provincial level. Actually, this is an information that is already being done in the country, but I just did it for the at the provincial level, to be able to use this information together with information that we got from the climate analysis. And finally, we can incorporate these two analyses into this danger map that shows different levels of danger to mass movements during strong coastal El Nino events. As you can see here, not just the north coast of the country might be affected, but also other sides of the country, basically in the west slope of the Andes. So this is information that is there, and it's good to use that one, but we need to do something, and then we have to create an adaptation option. And this adaptation option needs to be context specific, and we are talking about the Andes, we are talking about sloping conditions, we are talking about people that don't have enough money to, I don't know, to make walls or something difficult. And that's why we come up with an ecosystem-based option, because we understand that the vegetation, they have a lot of properties, a lot of regulation services. And we also got some studies from two different techniques that are listed here, and we combined them in order to create an agroforestry option that is basically incorporating the danger intensities that we created before in order to build an adaptation strategy that is trying to allocate different proportion of trees, shrubs, and crops in order to decrease the susceptibility to mass movement. So by doing that, we can roughly decrease the susceptibility to mass movement by 15% because we cannot do anything about the precipitation. In the end, we are using the information that we have from the future scenarios of El Nino in order to include this into danger assessments to finally try to combine these in a more cost effective and context-specific adaptation option. Of course, this study has a lot of limitations because we are just in just one model. We should use more models, of course, but this was a proof of concept of how can we integrate information that we create in the climate arena, in the science arena, into more practical options. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.